Garry, thanks for joining us today.
Thank
How are
you.
you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you so much.
Good. I wanted to have a quick chat with you about the digital frontline.
Okay.
We're very, very, very aware of all of the people who are, in the health service and providing critical services to people, and there's no taking away from that. There are absolute heroes. But I suppose in recent times, what we're seeing is that as people are working from home, as they're, socializing online, that there is a critical part of our society that we have overlooked a little bit, I suppose, in the past. And that's what happens in the data center and on the internet. And I think this is an opportunity to look at the digital front line and what that means to our country and to our economy and to our people.
What we're going through at the moment is a process of adjustment, both psychologically, economically, and more than anything, society-wise. And the tools that we have at our disposal now via the digital world are our crutches to get us through this. And that's part of those tools are data centers, other ones are the internet, other ones are our mobile phones. So I think at this moment in time, when we look at our daily lives, which is, as you rightly say, it's to do with teleconferencing, it's conference calls, it's school remotely, it's e-commerce online, then we then start to appreciate a little bit more, how does this work? Well, it's working because over the last 40 years, we've moved globally, not just in Ireland, from floppy disks to the internet. And the internet then gives us all of these on demand, as it were, tools that we can use. And we've sort of been a little bit complacent regarding these tools, like a lot of things, until we actually now have to use them. And therefore,
isn't it a little bit that it's not that we're complacent, it's just that it's so much more visible now how critical they are in our lives. So I've been in this industry for years and years and years. And I've always seen it as, bits and bytes and power and, but actually it's about how these tools affect our lives. I mean, if we had this kind of lockdown 10 or 15 years ago, it would be a completely different experience to what it is today.
Yeah, no question. And I think that there's nobody at fault for this bar change itself. But the magic has always been the power of the data. The data has always been the why. The tools then are the how, and the how we do this and how we do that. If this had been 15 years ago, we would still be functioning, but we would have modems and we would have dial-up and we would have a form of what we're able to experience now. The evolution to where we are now is really full 4 to 5 years into what they classify as the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Well, that's just data. And that's now what we're using, this tool we're communicating, and other tools that are all over our house, whether they be entertainment. The key thing is that now people have a greater appreciation because it's visual, we're using it, of what this industrial revolution thing is, right? And those big data centers, should they just suck in power and they do nothing? Oh, what about the inconvenience of digging up your road to get broadband? These fiber cables running across the Atlantic that go to the Pacific, so they're just for the fish. No, it's actually the fabric that's actually connecting us right now. And they're the pathways to allow us to use the data. And the data then is what we're actually then making up the Industrial Revolution 4.0. So I think it's that tangibility, probably complacency is the wrong word, but you only really realize that you need a safety net when you fall from the high beam. And now what we're finding is, and this is the key thing that I think is outstanding, is that data center and data center designers, operators, software designers, they are now demonstrating that they're like astronauts, that they've trained themselves for failure. And that's not in a negative way. That's so that when things go bad, they know what to do. They've built in capacity so that you and I and all the other citizens of the world can have something close to a norm. Because as you rightly said, if we were real in total isolation, away from our loved ones, away from our work, away from even archives of sport that we hope to return to, that would be a whole different view of what now we're experiencing, which is more like a holding pattern. It's more like a change in our behavior, but we can still behave in a manner that we feel connected both with our work, with our family, etc. So I think that this will never return to the old way. I can't see us returning, because it's a bit like when you get a taste for something, then you're more likely to adapt to the something.
And actually that was something we chatted about earlier, was even, you know, where we might have hopped on the phone before, people are more likely to get on video calls now. We're not worrying about it so much, about seeing ourselves on screen. We're just getting on the video calls. And that's really, because, you know, I work here remotely really anyway. So it, you know, there's such great opportunities there, I think, for the future as well.
I'm constantly surrounded by a whole room of people. I'm not sure about you, but as you can see, but you're so right. What I have not despaired, that's the wrong word, but what I've been concerned about over the last 2 to 3 years is that people have stopped phoning and calling. And that's why, you know, social intercourse and that whole sort of binding of people together, you might have despaired. But now with this medium, people actually have tried it and quite enjoy it. People are now even starting to play with it, even this background and stuff. Within a week, people are having pina colada conference calls where the theme is pina colada. Now that'll die down. But
that should never die down. That should always remain a constant. I think that would be my manifesto.
That would be your manifesto, and I think that ultimately people, once they get familiar with a tool, you know, I'm over 40, so I'm not meant to read manuals.
You're not over 40. Are you over 40?
Well, this side of me is. This side. This one here that's not on screen, that's only 21. But, you know, so the new norm, people will adopt to it, but hopefully that they won't forget the wonderful tools and services that are at their disposal now, because people have been designing, building and operating data centers throughout the world to create this infrastructure. And of course, we have to forget everything is closed mostly. Certainly all the physical factories are closed, but the digital factories of the world are still up and running and open. And if you take Ireland, for instance, you know, 20 years ago, we were exporting floppy disks, and we were the largest exporter of software in the world. We're still one of the largest exporters of software, which has a value, which is sitting in the data centers, which is this Zoom call is probably monetized somewhere by somebody through a data center. So they're still operating, and I'm really looking forward to 3, 4, 6 months ahead, where we can see, well, there was no exports except for digital services. The value of the digital services were X, and then maybe people will start to get an appreciation for the value of the digital factories, because it's a constant thing of where there's change, where there's such rapid change, you'll always have people that are detracting. Yeah. And the detracting is because, and the industry hasn't done itself any favors, in my opinion, is they're always that box, the data center. Oh, sure, what good is that? That's only a box that just has a large energy bill, but they're actually functioning factories. It's just not factories as we've known them.
Yeah, and I think I am seeing that more than ever in these circumstances, more than I ever did before. And I'm from the industry. Before we go, Garry, what's the one tool that you've enjoyed, or has made life easier, or has changed your life or kept you sane in the last couple of weeks?
Spotify, I have had it, I use it, I've teenage children, so I'm fully up on Post Malone and all these people, and it's been wonderful. But what I've noticed with it since I've gone into this isolated mode is that I can listen back, and it connects me to an era and a time where maybe I was only 20, not 40, or a time when I was 10, and the music, and it links it all for you, and it makes suggestions for you. And I've had some great memories of my mother and my father and all that type of stuff. And I think at these times it's that comfort. It's like a comfort blanket. Music is like a comfort blanket around you. And if I was here with 1,000 vinyl CDs or whatever, I'd never have that linkage. So I think that Spotify. I have my little friend here, Alexa. She helps me. I'm starting to personalize her now with dicky bowls and things. So as you can see, we're getting on quite well.
That's good. Good to see the relationships are flourishing in this difficult time.
You know, I can see us going on holidays and all sorts of things.
On that note, Garry, thank you very much. It'd be great to chat to you, and I shall talk to you probably too soon.